Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. Did you hear about the martial law in South Korea? The weird lessons we can learn here from global economies and handling crises. CNBC contributor Michelle Caruso-Cabrera spanning the world.
Today, there's going to be a vote in France where the government may collapse. They're going to have a no-confidence vote to the Prime Minister.
How ultrasound and MRI maker Royal Philips is using artificial intelligence in healthcare. Don't worry, it's not coming for doctors.
We are very passionate about giving time back to the caregivers. We are not competing with people or caregivers. There are a huge shortage of those.
Plus, Campbell's spilling the soup early as their CEO heads to a new job, Salesforce driving the Dow, and President-elect Trump's pick for defense secretary may be in jeopardy.
I never understand. I'm on TV. I'm not ready, I don't think, to join the cabinet.
It is Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue, please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan. Andrew is hosting the New York Times DealBook Summit today, and he will join us a little later in the show. We are up across the board. Salesforce is the big gainer in the Dow. That's pushing the Dow up by about 213 points above fair value. S&P futures are up by 15, the NASDAQ up by 125. It does come after a mixed session for the major averages. You had the S&P and the NASDAQ both closing at record highs yesterday. In fact, for the S&P, that's 55 this year. The Dow closed slightly lower. It's been down for a couple sessions in a row, but the Dow is less than 1% from an all-time high as well.
Mr. Higgs,
so you're okay with that?
Do you need to address the questions about your character that have been raised?
Mr. Higgs, do you have an alcohol problem?
Mr. Higgs, how do you respond to the New Yorker article about you today?
Hey guys, we're not doing questions.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk to senators today. It's a great process, respect it, and I look forward to it.
President-elect Trump is considering other options for the cabinet position of running the Pentagon amid Republican senators' concerns over mounting allegations about Pete Hegseth's personal life. Multiple reports say Trump allies are increasingly concerned that Hegseth's nomination might not survive further scrutiny. What can you lose? 3 at most Republicans if Democrats, which they always do, stay solid with their bloc. Yeah. The Wall Street Journal reports that Trump has floated Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as a possible replacement in casual conversations with guests at Mar-a-Lago. And the report says the idea has been presented to the governor, Florida governor, in recent days. NBC News has reached out to Governor DeSantis and the Trump transition team for comment. The Journal report says Trump allies have also mentioned former Pentagon official Elbridge Colby, a frequent guest on Squawk Box, and would be a great pick too, Senator Joni Ernst, which we've mentioned before, for the job, who has expressed a great interest in that position.
You pointed out that this would be interesting just because of the falling out between DeSantis and Trump.
Right.
DeSantis was elected governor with Trump's endorsement for the first time, and then when he ran against him, real breakup.
I never understand, I'm on TV. I'm not ready, I don't think, to join the cabinet. I don't know about Hegseth. I don't know anything. I mean, he served nobly. He's got a great background in terms of education, but I never really understood whether that was the best pick, and was hoping for someone like Bridge Colby or Joni Ernst, I think Governor DeSantis would be a great pick too. So
DeSantis,
all 3 of those very serious picks. It's just weird. Like the first AG pick, bizarre. Second one, much better. This, I mean, if you get it right eventually, everybody benefits. Right?
Well, you're going to have to appeal to the Republican senators, as you pointed out. You can only lose 3 of them.
Right.
If you can't keep them, and by the way, it's probably a high bar to get Republican senators to break with the Republican incoming president who received such a mandate at this point. So if you're getting major pushback from 5, 6 senators or more, it's an issue you're going to have to revisit pretty quickly.
A couple of them, they're barely. Is Murkowski even a Republican now? She's a.
It doesn't matter. This is a popular incoming president.
Susan Collins is in one of the bluest states around. So
right, but if you are dealing with big pushback from the Senate, even when you have this majority, you're going to have to stop and rethink things.
Well, I'll take any of the other three. But we don't know if Seg said. I don't know. When you start talking about it in terms like this, it usually means.
Well, there's the question of how much political capital you want to expend.
I think if it's a front page of the journal, it's probably in trouble that it's. Gates was gone. He's here today, gone tomorrow. Right. It's just quickly, and Trump just said, "Look, you're out." So.
Right. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Salesforce. We mentioned those shares are soaring. That company came in with earnings of $2.41 a share. That was below the expectations of $2.44, but revenue beat expectations, and the current quarter revenue guidance exceeded expectations as well. CEO Mark Benioff spoke to Jim Cramer last night on Mad Money about the prospects for its AI chatbot system, which is known as Agent Force.
Everything is going to be enhanced through this agent mechanism, and that's an incredible opportunity that we're able to harness the power of generative AI that we've seen, and we're delivering something absolutely incredible. And Shark Ninja is going to be a huge success story based on this idea.
Again, that move better than 13% this morning. And with the move, Salesforce is now up more than 40% for the year to date, well outpacing the S&P 500, which we mentioned has been up 55 times to new highs this year. Jim Cramer spoke with him last night. And not only that, I have to say, I was watching Cramer at the top where he gave his ideas about what he sees coming. And he has a really intriguing idea about the idea that with this incoming administration, you may see closer ties to China than we had anticipated. Part of that, he points to Elon Musk being there and having very close ties to China. If that's the case, Jim was saying there's a lot of stocks you should buy, including Apple and Starbucks and others that have ties to this. It's an interesting idea. It's not one many other people are pushing, and it was pretty intriguing last night.
When you think about what the end means to an end, if tariffs are the means to better trade in terms of what the United States gets from its trade with China, if that's the end result, if you do it in an economic way, and we lower some of the other tensions with China, and if China cops to being a serial violator of WTF. And they do.
Well, Jim even pointed to the idea that Trump has had a lot more fiery rhetoric that he's aimed at Canada than he's aimed at China since the election, and thinks maybe part of that is because Elon Musk is so involved behind the scenes.
But China could pull back. I mean, they know that some of the stuff they did, it was pretty bad, pretty egregious, whether it's fentanyl or dumping. I mean, they've been dumping.
I don't know if you could stop
They've been dumping all kinds of different steel. They're going to dump EVs. But I don't know whether they're in a position to moderate what they do because of their own internal issues that they have to. Overcapacity. Right. But maybe things get better. That would be good.
And we're watching shares of Campbell, the maker of Campbell Soups. CEO Mark Klaus is leaving to become president of the NFL's Washington Commanders. Wow, that's an interesting move. That move is effective as of January 31st. He's going to be replaced by Mick Beekhuizen, the former CFO and current president of Campbell's Meals and Beverages division. Klaus became CEO in early 2019 and oversaw the effort to try and diversify the company away from just soup into other packaged food and snack brands. Campbell's owns Pepperidge Farms, Pace Salsa, and Goldfish Crackers. Campbell also reported earnings a day earlier than schedules, and it beat estimates on the bottom line. It missed slightly on the top line. That stock down by about 1.4%.
Goldfish Crackers.
Pepperidge Farms.
We go through a lot of those.
I ate some last night.
There were, I think it was Julia Child. That would be the only, or somebody, maybe it was Martha Stewart.
Only packaged.
No, that was the hors d'oeuvres for a nice dinner. Would be just.
No way.
Oh yeah, I'll look it up. I think it's Julia Child.
Wow. Get an answer?
That wasn't the only thing she served, but she was known for serving them as a simple appetizer, especially during Thanksgiving and cocktail hours. Goldfish crackers were one of her favorite snacks and paired well with her preferred drink, the reverse martini, which features more vermouth and gin.
Really?
Damn. Interesting.
Next on Squawk Pod, the economics fueling change around the world with CNBC contributor Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, the surprising and very brief martial law in South Korea, and the European economy that hasn't grown by much since 2008.
The reason we're talking so much about France is because their debt now trades almost worse than Greece.
And it's the second largest economy in the euro.
Plus, what MCC is watching in South America, around the globe, right after this.
I'm thinking about Dan Aykroyd cutting his finger, dressed up as Julia Child on Saturday Night Live. Do you remember that?
No.
He's like, oh, she's cutting, and he cuts his, and it just is hemorrhaging, just all over the place. I'll get the video.
This is Squawk Pod from CNBC, today with Joe Kernan and Becky Quick.
Stand by, Joe. His mic, cue.
South Korea's opposition party is calling for President Yoon's impeachment now after he declared martial law about a budget fight. The order was lifted 6 hours later after the parliament voted against the measure. The political chaos also played out in the markets, impacting the currency of South Korea and stocks. Joining us now, CNBC contributor Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, CEO of MCC Global Enterprises.
Good morning.
We didn't see this one coming.
If we met before, I think we have. We go way back, obviously. In many places around the world, when we look and see things happening, it's confusing for
Yes.
Americans because we take for granted. I mean, we have our issues in this country, obviously, but martial law based on his political opposition, he's calling them criminals. They want budget cuts, communists. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to declare martial law and control the media and whatever that entails, which is a big deal. And it lasts 6 hours.
It was very short-lived, yes, because he didn't have the support of the
parliament.
parliament.
Can you explain?
When I saw the headline that he declared martial law, I was like, what did North Korea do?
Right, exactly.
That was my immediate reaction. Then I was like, what?
That is the question. Yeah. When North Korea sees this instability with all these troops still amassed on the, what is it, the demarcate, whatever that line.
DMZ.
Yeah, the DMZ.
Zone, yes. So obviously the whole world was taken by surprise, right? He does it late time Korea, right? It's I think your show's almost over when he does it. And then the Korean won was off by 7%. All of the internationally traded Korean stocks that were listed in London or here in the United States sold off by 7%. The parliament reacted in the middle of the night, voted against martial law, and as a result, he had to withdraw the whole thing, all before the Korean market ever actually had a chance to react. The Central Bank of Korea came out and said, we're going to provide as much liquidity as we need. The market authority came out and said, don't worry, the market's going to open on time. And as you can see, there actually isn't a huge reaction in the Korean stock market today because, poof, it was over from by the time they went to bed to the time they woke up in the morning. But still, it caused it pushed U.S. yields lower because people were concerned about what was happening. Is this because of North Korea? People in Korea or South Korea are still waiting for a good explanation as to, what were you thinking?
Right.
Because now it looks like his days are numbered. His party looks like it's going to abandon him. It's not clear they have enough votes to impeach him, but if enough people defect from his party, then he can
Right.
be
There were
gone.
only a few people, like his defense minister who he went to high school with, and a few other people within his own ranks who knew what was going on.
Yeah, no, it was incredibly confusing to them, to the whole world. Yeah. And I'm sure, he's a conservative. He's a pro-business conservative. He's pro-deregulation, et cetera. And I'm sure that it, caught him by surprise. I'm not sure he realized just the terrible, terrible market reaction that he unleashed as a result of doing this, out of nowhere in the middle of the night.
What caused the initial, budgetary concerns to become so front and center? What does he want? What is the opposition pushing for? Are there any similarities to us here when we do Doge? Are we going to?
So there's a progressive party. The party that used to be in power was progressive, and they want to rely more on government programs to solve problems, whereas he is more about deregulation, et cetera.
This all sounds familiar to me.
Yes. By the way, it's the same problem in France.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, which you also have a
I know
situation in
that
France.
I saw that you're going to draw some parallels. Tell us
Well, I mean, so today there's going to be a vote in France where the government may collapse. They're going to have a no confidence vote to the prime minister. It'll be the shortest premiership since, I don't know, 1950s, 3 months.
It just came through, July was the elections, the last legislative elections. They can't hold them again until next July.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the good news in France is you can only dissolve the government once a year. So they have to wait until July before they're going to have new elections. But they also have big budget fights going on, which is one of the similar drivers between that and South Korea, is they're fighting over how to cut the spending levels in France, which are horrific. They've got
6%.
Their deficit is 6% of GDP.
Lower than ours.
Yeah, the rule in Europe is supposed to be 3% of GDP, so they're way over. He's just trying to get it down to 5% of GDP. And there was, $60 billion worth of either tax hikes or tax cuts. They're going to, they nationalized the gas company, so they're going to extract another $2 billion of dividends from the gas company. They wanted to cut the number of teachers. They wanted to increase the amount that people had to pay for their prescriptions, which was a no-go for Marine Le Pen. They wanted to raise electricity taxes. That's all, she said that's not going to happen. And so now the right and the left look like they're going to gang up, vote him, vote no confidence for him. And so you end up with some kind of caretaker government with emergency powers to do the basics until they can figure out what's next. The reason we're talking so much about France is because their debt now trades almost worse than Greece.
Right, and it's the second largest economy in the euro.
Right. I would not say we're on the verge of a eurozone crisis. I mean, the 10-year yield in France, if we can put it up, is like 3%. I mean, nobody's terrified. It's trading at a premium to Germany. It's the biggest premium that we've seen in a very long time. And yes, it trades worse than Greece, which has been rectifying itself for the last 15 years. But you have to worry about an economy that doesn't grow. They haven't grown since 2008. They just don't grow. And they are emblematic of all of the problems that Europe faces right now, which is, they're calcifying before our eyes.
We've almost spanned the globe with similar issues about overspending and debt to GDP and all these things. I don't know what it says for global currency fluctuation. I guess we're not as bad then. We'll stay the reserve currency. But if everyone is overspent and are going to have to inflate their currencies, what does that mean about a global slowdown?
Race to the bottom. Well, call me a professor of the obvious, but when money costs nothing all over the world.
You're a professor of the obvious. You're our professor of the obvious. Did you want me to call you that? Or that was just an expression?
Anticipating that. Interest rates were so low all over the world, so people borrowed and borrowed and borrowed because they thought there were no consequences.
Goes where it shouldn't go.
And that's where, and now we're all living with the overhang, the hangover, shall we say?
So in addition to making us multiplanetary to save the human species, Elon may also save the world from its overspending with
So what Elon is doing is very interesting, or what he's going to try to do is very interesting, because he's going to try to cut the federal government by 30%, right? There's only one place in the world that's been done recently, and that's Argentina. Yeah. The new president of Argentina. Right. Do you know how much he cut the budget? 30%? He did it in 1 month. 1 month. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how do you cut a budget 30% in 1 month, because there's so many, for every dollar in the federal budget, there is a constituency. There's a legislator who wants to defend that dollar, right? And what it takes is an enormous amount of political will. He's got a president, you've got a president in Argentina who, did you see the cover of The Economist this week? The headline is, "My hate for the state is infinite." That's his quote. And so they've been extremely aggressive about cutting. They fired 30,000 federal workers. It's what
the question is the reaction in the economy and whether he will continue to have support.
So that's what's been very interesting. His polls have fallen a little bit, but considering how much government spending has been cut, the recession wasn't nearly as bad as you might think. Mm-hmm. The World Bank was estimating that this year they might have a decline of 4.5%, considering you were going to have if you remember, if you took macroeconomics, Y equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? If you cut G by 30%, you're gonna hurt the economy. However, they expect the economy to recover by next year because it's also come
Argentina
with
was so messed up.
They're doing massive deregulatory work.
We need to cut it
well.
before all of its interest because you can't cut interest unless
That's the thing. You got to pay your bills, or you can inflate your way out. But
So
it's hard when
what we
everybody
do
else is
have
doing
to
it.
cut, we need to do it now before all of it that we're spending is interest.
I was actually wondering if our next Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is going to say, I believe in a strong dollar. I mean, if we're trying to boost manufacturing, you want a weaker dollar.
But how many federal employees go to work once a month and are working remote? I saw some figure. It was staggering.
Yes, staggering.
So I can
It's
do.
staggering.
I think I can do 10 or 15%. Like tomorrow, can't you? I do.
You could probably do this job and that. And
cutting. I can do.
You could cut.
I can do 10 to 15%. I think Elon could do that in his sleep.
Yeah.
The other
probably.
10 to 15 might get.
If you have the political will from the legislature.
All right, MCC Global.
Enterprises, yeah.
And wow, I love that.
Is that new?
How many employees?
Yeah, in last year.
Yeah.
You're looking at her.
Love that. All right. That's a key employee.
Yeah, but I got lots of, great contractors that I work with.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Oh my
Thanks,
God, I said
Michelle.
absolutely. I swore I'd never say that. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheese will be next.
Still to come on Squawk Pod, a check-in with our Andrew Ross Sorkin ahead of the New York Times DealBook Summit. And where AI is at play in our healthcare system with Royal Philips CEO Roy Jakobs.
We were looking at how can we make the experience for children better by using technology. That is creating an ambience in which they feel more at home when they have to take a scan. That's actually shortening the scan with the help of AI.
Radiology, administrative work, and so much more about to change right after this. Welcome back. You're listening to Squawk Pod. Here's Joe Kernan.
The New York Times DealBook Summit is happening today, and Andrew joins us live from Jazz at Lincoln Center. I'm just giving you a generic intro, Andrew, because I think it's hard for you to hear, but can you hear me okay? Because I'm excited about whether you can hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Not well. We got a lot of people around, and I actually put one of these earbuds in so I can hear you on both sides.
Every year I see it on your face. Something is happening. You're talking to someone, and they say something that's just so unbelievable. And I think you know at the time or have a pretty good idea. And you know what I'm talking about in previous years, where you just can't believe what someone just said. And it's going to be everywhere by tomorrow. Who's it going to be from today with the lineup? You don't know. Can you predict? You've got good questions.
I never know.
No, you don't.
You know what? The great part is there's so many options, right? It could, something will come up. That's the whole point of this in some way. We're gonna imagine make headlines and news from all sorts of
folks. Should be on DraftKings. I'm going to
start
betting. DraftKings.
You want to bet? You want to bet on DraftKings?
Yeah.
You know who's, by the way, you know who's headed here? Sean from Polymarket is going to be here. So maybe he could set up a betting line
on where it's going to come from.
Discussed. But
let's talk about
all.
Just
to give you a sense of who's on deck exactly and where some of that news can come from. We're going to start the day in just a little bit with Ken Griffin, of course, of Citadel. We'll talk markets, of course, with him, but we're really going to talk about what's going on in this country. He was, of course, one of the largest, actually one of the top 5 Republican donors, just behind Elon Musk this year. And so we'll talk about everything that's happening during this transition and what it means for the economy. Then a little bit later, we'll talk to OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman about AI and where everything is going. A little bit after that, tennis legend and entrepreneur Serena Williams will be with us. And then we're going to talk about our democracy, this country, about everything that's just happened in the election and what happens next with former President Bill Clinton. And then this afternoon, I think possibly one of the most consequential people when it comes to the global economy, Fed Chair Jay Powell will be with us. We'll bring you that live, of course, right here on CNBC. And then we're going to talk to the most listened to podcast host for women, Alex Cooper, host of Call Her Daddy and the Daddy Gang. And then later in the afternoon, we're going to have a discussion about GLP-1s. Of course, this great revolution happening in medicine. Eli Lilly CEO David Ricks, along with Dr. Fatima Cody Stanford, one of the leading obesity doctors in the country. We'll talk about mental health and a massive lawsuit happening in the UK in just a little bit with Prince Harry, of course, the Duke of Sussex. Talk about mental health and so much more. And then we're going to spend time with a man who's in the hot seat. Alphabet and Google CEO Sundar Pichai, of course, that company in the crosshairs of the government to possibly get broken up. And then we will conclude the day with the one and only Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder, and of course now the founder of Blue Origin, who's headed to the moon and then hopefully to Mars. So we've got a huge day set up for you, and we'll be bringing you coverage throughout the day right here on CNBC.
That's amazing, Andrew. And I wish I didn't have a last name. I wish I was like Prince Joe, but I'm not. And he's not Prince Harry Sussex. He does not have a last name, like us mere mortals.
That is true.
He does not have a last name.
It's funny because I was looking through the list. So I think there was some kind of material about the event a couple months ago that someone asked me to take a look at, and I saw it, and it just said Prince Harry, and I said, I literally thought to myself, I Googled it. Does he have a last name, and how do you write it? So, yes.
I just did that.
Just call him Prince Harry.
I have a last name. It's Joe Squawk. at Joe Squawk, but he literally does not have. That is so cool, though. Seems a little bit anachronistic, but no, can't wait, Andrew. Can't wait for all those things.
We've been talking all morning about what we might hear coming out of this.
Find out whether they're cutting at the next meeting. Just ask him. You doing it or not? Say yes or no.
I'll ask. And we'll talk about all of it, I'm sure, tomorrow morning all together.
Yeah, and we will be watching all day, and we're really looking forward to it.
AI is promising disruption in healthcare, but also potentially better patient care. Joining us now, someone on the forefront of this revolution, Roy Jakobs, CEO of Royal Philips. He's based out of the Netherlands, but is in the U.S. for the annual meeting of the Radiological Society of North America. So you can see where we're going with this. And that is whether machines and AI can be better than a doctor at all these subjective diagnostic things that we worry so much. I've always wondered, would I rather have a false positive or a false negative? I think I'd rather have. I don't want either. I don't want either. I don't want you to miss something, but I don't want you to tell me that I got like 6 months to live, unless I can't pay you, then you give me a year. But will it be better, or do you need a doctor?
It's really exciting to be here, so thank you for having
Welcome.
me. And it's an exciting time in healthcare because we see many challenges and opportunities. I think everyone who walks into a hospital feels it, sees it. And AI can actually really make a difference. And I think it's not competing with the caregivers or the people in the hospital, actually supporting them, what we need to look for with our innovations. And actually what you saw at the imaging show that we were, and that I'm just coming from, is actually that a lot is happening already today that helps caregivers, whether it's a doctor in better diagnosis, whether it's the technician in first time right positioning with the help of AI, or whether it's a nurse in giving her time or him time back, spending more time with the patient, because we can do some of the reporting that they need to do. On average, a nurse spends 20 minutes on admin tasks an hour. And actually that we want to reduce to 5 minutes. And there AI can really make a meaningful difference.
Think about histological studies or cytological studies where you have to send it out and someone has to get it under a slide, look at it, interpret whether you see squamous or, I know something about these things now as you get a little older, but squamous or basal. And if you could just plug it in to AI, you'd know immediately. And then even the surgeon would know whether he had to remove more or...
No, I agree, and it goes fast. And a great example is pathology. Right?
Pathology.
We use a lot of slides that we look at to kind of do analysis, but slides are very hard to put AI on. So you need to first digitize. So there's a real current revolution going on where we are digitizing pathology.
And Philips is doing that?
And Philips is doing that, and we're doing that with NYU Langone. They are actually really doing that at scale. We are their partner. They're also combining it then with other data sets so that you can really get a full view of the patient, and you can come to better diagnoses for treatment of cancer and can do it faster and even better.
No question, Roy, that this is needed. You can understand how this would make a huge impact in a hospital setting like that. But hospitals don't have a lot of money. Most of them operate on profit margins of 1% to 2%. There are expectations that will even get squeezed tighter next year with changes that are expected to come down the pikeway. Everybody looking for ways to cut out waste and fraud. Some of that waste has been supplementing the hospitals to some extent. So what happens? Where's the money in it? It's not cheap to do this, to digitize and set up.
No, but I think at the same time, you see that a lot of what AI can do is actually help you to drive productivity. Mm-hmm. So whilst and at Philips, we're looking at, in essence, in a simple way, delivering two things. On one hand, better care, That's what we're talking about. How can you actually use the power of data and AI to come to better diagnosis, to better treatments? But the very important other side is how can you actually give better access to care in an affordable way? And there actually AI also comes to help. And I give you a few examples. There's a huge overload on imaging need currently. There are patients waiting to get scanned. Mm-hmm. So we developed an algorithm called Smart Speed that actually has 3 times faster scan time. So you can actually double the amount of patients you can do in the same hour that you could do before, which actually means that for a hospital, they can treat more patients, they can generate more revenue.
More revenue from more customers.
And they don't need to buy necessarily a whole new MR. They can install an upgrade with an AI kind of algorithm.
How much money do you need up front to implement some of these changes? Upfront fees that maybe pay off over time. I don't know how much time.
We are flexible in the business model, so actually sometimes you don't need any upfront payment. It's just a pay as you go or a pay as you consume. In imaging, for example, it's very common that also you pay per study or per report, which is also how the system gets reimbursed. So actually we tie and also looked at how can we really bring affordability. I give you another example of affordability. So we have come up and we presented the next Blue Seal MR. Mm-hmm. That is a helium-free MR that actually has a total cost of ownership that is 40% less versus traditional MR.
Yeah, those are expensive, right?
And that's a massive saving over lifetime that we are driving, and that actually is a combination of hardware evolution, but also AI that you deploy in the workflow. Because the big savings to be helping the systems with is how can we make more efficient workflows and take routine tasks out and deploy AI. Give you 25% of scheduling drops out. So in the patients that kind of do not show up, that's a massive loss of productivity right there. We can help hospitals with latest kind of AI to actually fill that very quickly so that they can make sure they get the best volume load and the best revenue generation capacity.
I mean, I would think like so many things that doctors and caregivers and nurses shouldn't worry about being displaced. They should worry about being able, or they should be happy that they'll be able to focus on more productive things than some of the menial things that they've been doing.
So we are very passionate about giving time back to the caregivers. And that's actually where technology really can help. Because as you say, for me, we are not competing with people or caregivers. There are a huge shortage of those. And we expect that shortage will also and only increase towards future because demand is going exponentially up and we just don't have enough doctors, nurses, and technicians. So actually we need to help to close that gap with bringing technology forward that can take tasks away. As I just mentioned, the reporting, some of the diagnosis where you can actually do pre-populated reports. But also when a radiologist needs to actually report back, they currently need to make specific reports. They need to use a lot of time for that. We can actually do that automatically. We had a Gen AI application that we showed that actually on voice dictation immediately puts up the report. Then the radiologist only has to validate, and then they can go back into talking to the patient, explaining actually what the diagnosis is about, because that's actually where real value is also created in making sure that patient understand that the right diagnosis is done. So I think you see a lot of advancements along the workflows where we can do this. Another example is with children. We have a great collaboration with Nicholas Children's Hospital, where we're looking at how can we make the experience for children better by using technology. That is creating an ambience in which they feel more at home when they have to take a scan. That's actually shortening the scan with the help of AI so that actually they can do it faster. And then also with the outcomes and the readings, how can you get the best outcome supporting AI? So you can look at all the different steps, both for the patient and the clinician, to make it a better outcome.
We're hoping that the promise of AI is all it's cracked up to be. I could just do healthcare and that's all you'd need to do to make it life-changing, world-changing, almost a quantum leap for what we do with things. And then you put everything else AI can do. But healthcare, there's so many different aspects that I can think of. So many different places. Diagnosis, therapeutics, all of it. Maybe there'll be a real Theranos someday instead of a fake Theranos. Maybe AI can take a drop of blood and tell you this is going to happen to you. Yeah. You've got this. Your liver is this. There's a lot of promise and a lot of potential. And thank you. Thanks for being here. And I think we're like the first batters up in the first inning. That's about where we are in this right now.
I agree. We are scratching the surface.
First pitch.
Much more to come.
Yep.
Very promising. Of course, there's also risk to be taken care of. But if you do it in a responsible manner, there's a massive win for the patient, for the clinician, and for the healthcare system.
I want the false. I decided I'd rather have a false positive.
Yeah,
Duh.
Hello.
Right, okay. You're right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Prince William used whales when he was in school and in military.
William Wales?
William Wales. Prince Harry used Mountbatten.
Mountbatten was his grandfather's.
Windsor, Mountbatten-Windsor when he got married. They can use it for official purposes for royal descendants that don't have HRH status.
I thought it was Mountbatten because of his grandfather, but
His children use Cambridge because he's also the Duke of Cambridge, William. So they used Cambridge as their last name.
so you're Joe, New Jersey.
No, I'm Joe Squawk. I'm not current.
Jersey.
Get rid of Joe.
And that's the pod for today. Thanks for listening. On our rundown tomorrow, highlights from the New York Times DealBook Summit. Please tune in. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. We're on TV weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Or you can get the best of our show right into your ears when you follow Squawk Pod. Follow this podcast wherever you like to listen. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.